Get shows like Today's Issues straight from the source.
Put back on the next.
Just say unbanned.
Unbanned.
Just search AFA Streaming or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for October the 26th, 2023. Thank you for listening to AFR. All right, so I'm going to introduce everybody here. Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
Chris Woodward.
Hello.
And Ray Pritchard.
Hey, Tim, how you doing?
Doing well, Ray. Thanks for joining us. Ray's in Kansas City, Kansas, and we're in Tupelo, Mississippi. That's where we're broadcasting from for today's issues. Weather report from KC.
Noah's flood for the last 2 days. We've had nothing but rain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, rain for two. I guess we're in a third straight day of rain, and right now and this afternoon it's going to be 74 degrees. And by Saturday morning, it's going to be down to 38.
Ooh.
So,
okay, so the Indian summer is over.
It is
starting
over.
on whatever day it is. You said Saturday?
Yes, Saturday morning.
We'll
Saturday
get it
morning.
on Monday.
Yeah.
Next week is when it starts to get cold.
Yeah. You're right. It has been, I guess you could call it unseasonably warm.
Yeah, 80s here.
Yeah, it's been
our
really
home base.
nice. Still like,
I call it awesome.
I know this is still like May or June. I'm not, but yeah. So, well, I know they got some much needed rain too across Texas and Oklahoma and I guess Kansas. You guys been dry too there?
We have not gotten much rain the last 2 or 3 months, and then here comes the flood.
Here comes the rain.
Yeah.
I think it's Here Comes the Sun, little darling, but if I'm not mistaken.
The Carpenters.
Chris.
That's right, the Carpenters.
Anytime Chris doesn't know.
When in doubt, just guess the Carpenters, kids.
That's right.
Carpenters, they did sing a song, Rainy Days of Mondays.
Not
Rainy
Waylon
Days
Jennings.
and Mondays,
Yes.
that's
I think
right.
I think that's the Beatles.
That's how all of this got started.
Yeah. It is. I think it's Here Comes the Sun.
You'll have to go
is
back
the
to our
Beatles.
podcast, which you can find on afr.net and find out what we're talking
Yes.
about.
We're educating Chris on life in the 60s and 70s.
That's right.
I got my MD right now working on the PhD.
All right. So, hey, if you want to join us on what Ed affectionately calls that their internet, you can go to our streaming service. You can watch the show live there, streaming.afa.net. Streaming.afa.net. We are also on Facebook. Go to Facebook Live. Type in Today's Issues, and you can watch the show there. We also post the stories that we discuss, where you can read them for yourself, where we get our information from at Facebook Live. And then YouTube. Brent, again, we've just recently been able to get back on YouTube. For those who use that service, what do they need to do?
They can go to YouTube and search for Today's Issues live stream.
Today's
find us there.
Issues. Okay, Today's Issues live stream. All right, so Chris, what's the first story today?
Well, happening right now in the great state of Maine, state and local officials are having a press conference to update people on a terrible situation there that began last night in Maine. Right now, at least 18 people are dead, 13 injured in a Maine shootings. We have the story on our website, afn.net. If you're not familiar with the story, a man shot and killed at least 18 people at a restaurant and a bowling alley in Lewiston, Maine, and then fled into the night, sparking a massive search by hundreds of officers while frightened residents in multiple communities stayed locked in their homes today under a shelter-in-place advisory. A police bulletin has identified 40-year-old Robert Card as a person of interest in the attack that sent panicked bowlers scrambling behind pins when shots rang out around 7 p.m. last night. Card has been described by authorities as a firearms instructor believed to be in the Army Reserve and assigned to a training facility there in the state of Maine.
So he hasn't been captured, Fred?
No, they are still looking for him. Lewiston, if you want to place it on the map there in Maine, is just kind of northeast of Portland, Maine, inland a bit. Second largest city in Maine. This man they're looking for, Robert Card, 40 years of age, as Chris has mentioned, ex-military person. He went into these restaurants, the bowling alley, filled with people late yesterday afternoon, early evening, and according to police reports, opened fire on these individuals that were there. The lockdown, schools, public buildings, et cetera, continuing through the day today. We don't know much more about him, this Mr. Card, than we have talked about, other than there are some reports that said he had some mental illness problems. This past summer, he spent 2 or 3 weeks in a mental hospital, so that might indicate that he was under some degree of stress. And whether that was behind it or not, we're not sure. But that's what we know at this point.
18 people confirmed dead?
18. The governor of the state, Governor Janet Mills, just confirmed an updated number. There were a couple of different numbers earlier this morning. One news agency reporting 22, another one saying 16. But she just told us 18 people
How many
confirmed
injured?
that 13 injured.
Okay, so he just went into this bowling alley and started mowing people down.
Bowling alley and restaurant. There was two separate areas where he opened fire.
Yeah. I just heard about this story last night, about 9 or 10 o'clock I heard, our time, and I was shocked, as everybody was, about how many people were dead and injured, killed and injured. And this town's about 40,000 people, I think 35, 40,000 people.
Yeah. And Maine.
But you just don't think of Maine, Ray, as a place where this kind of thing would happen, you know?
Well, in the first place, until you've gone to Maine, you don't realize how, if I say rural, I mean, Lewiston, it's a big city for Maine. But the minute you get outside the city limits, you are in a deeply forested area.
Right.
Anything north and east of Portland is almost like virgin forest up there. So what happened to this fella? Because if you look at the map of Lewiston, I mean, I've not been to the city, but driven through it on I-95. Goes from Portland right through Lewiston. So you can see that there was a shooting kind of up on the north side. Then evidently he went down to somewhere else on the south side. One of those, I don't know which one was first, but he shot. It's not as if he shot up two locations that are like a block apart. So whoever did this, clearly, guys, had thought about what he was doing, had planned it out clearly. You see from those pictures, obvious military training. Where did he go? Where did he, after he shot and killed these people, where did he go?
Yeah, because it's a massive manhunt.
It is.
Local, state, probably FBI involved. I don't know.
Yes, very much so.
But at the same time, if he planned it out, if in fact he's the killer, which appears that he was, but he got him on video, right? So, but we're always taught to use the word alleged before somebody's convicted. That's typically how you're supposed to handle it as a journalist. But in this case, you got a video. But you just wondered, to your point, Ray, if this guy knows the area and he knows he was going to be chased,
right?
He probably knows how to hide,
right? And again, once you get outside the city,
right,
you are in deeply forested area. I guess the second question is, we're assuming he acted alone, but we don't even really know that, do we?
No.
Was there anybody else involved?
There's no indication from anybody. Just been listening to this news conference with the governor, with also the local police department, the state police. There is no indication from their comments that Mr. Card, if the suspect had any help.
Yeah.
or what his motive,
Or what his motive
would have
was.
been.
No.
Let me tell you, I don't want to talk too much about this, but when these kinds of things happen, and I hear about somebody being mentally ill, okay, and that's a reason why they did what they did. I think that's a two-part answer, if I even ask a question there, because a lot of these folks who want to blame these kinds of actions on mental illness don't consider spiritual evil. Okay, now I know in psychology school you don't. How do you study that, right? Exactly. Here's what I mean by that. If they're gonna say, by they I mean the people who try to explain this on TV all day, every day. Well, this fella had mental illness. He went into a mental hospital last year, whatever like that. Okay, that's that. I'm sorry that happened to him, and mental illness is a real thing. I'm not dismissing it. But if you got enough sense to get a AR, is that what they call it? An AR?
Yeah.
And you got enough sense to know you're driving down to the bowling alley and you're going to kill a lot of people, and you got enough sense to leave the area and try to get away from the police, then guess what? You're not mentally ill. You're just killing people because you're an evil person. Or you've been possessed by the devil, which, a lot of mental illnesses are really just demonic possession.
Yes.
Now, the world doesn't know how to describe that like we do as Christians, but that's what the Bible says. The devil, who is a real entity, takes control of somebody's mind and causes them to do evil and wicked things. Right, Ray? Have I got that right?
Well, it's 100% that demon possession is a real thing, because the devil's real. Because if you open the door and he comes in, Jesus himself said the thief comes but to steal, to kill, and to destroy.
Yeah, I've just heard I've heard heinous crimes often dismissed, and person's supposed to get like less of a penalty, right, because they have mental illness. And I'm going, well, show me that exactly, because what I see, this was planned and plotted and executed. And if you got enough sense to do all that, then you know exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
Otherwise, why didn't he go out and shoot up a refrigerator out in a field somewhere? Take your anger out on that. Why do you go kill innocent people?
And to your point that it was planned, he is still on the loose. They found his car.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's out there somewhere.
Yeah, he may be crazy in the generic sense we use that word to describe somebody who does something like this. Everybody looks at that and goes, "Well, that's nuts. That's crazy." Yeah, it's crazy in the sense that it's completely, totally abnormal from everyday actions, but it's not crazy in the sense that he didn't know what he was doing. That's what I'm saying.
That's right.
But massive manhunt underway, and I'm sure the authorities will be updating us. But you got to be if you live in the area, they've told them shelter in place, right?
Yes.
Since they've been sheltered in place for 12 hours now, right?
Yeah, last night the schools in a very broad area, they told them they're shutting down today. Don't send your kids to school.
No, also they want the roads clear as much as possible so they could detect him if he's driving out, right?
Yeah. One of the other
you think
things
they'll have roadblocks too?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot of footage already of roadblocks last night. This morning, people are coming woods. I'm presuming police
my guess
officers.
is this guy is going to be found out in the country, out in as Ray decided. What did you call it? Out in the forest?
Yeah, I mean this is just a heavily forested area.
He'll probably be found out there. Sometime.
I would imagine if it is true that he has a background in the Army Reserve. He probably has some sort of wilderness training.
That's when he's dangerous, very dangerous. Because I mean, you could have a shootout.
Oh yeah,
you could have booby traps if he's planned it this far in advance.
Yes.
One of the other things that you're going to hear today are the survivor stories, and I have one here. Steve Jordahl cut this soundbite for us. It's a man identified only as Brandon. He was at the bowling alley, and he's telling reporters here of his efforts to escape the gunman. Clip 1.
Out of nowhere, he just came in, and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door. And as soon as I turned and saw it was not a balloon, he was holding a weapon, I just booked it down the lane, and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machines for about 10 minutes until the cops got there.
Yeah. By the way, the cops didn't confront him. He was gone, right?
That's right.
Yeah. He fled.
Okay. There was no shootout at the bowling alley or anything.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Which goes, again, to this was planned.
Right.
And to execute that plan in two very different locations.
Right.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Very sad, tragic for the families involved in the community. That'll be, that'll
Yes.
They'll be in shock for a while.
And the President of the United States has ordered flags at half-staff until October 30th at all public buildings across
Oh,
the
is that
country.
right? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Just to recap before we move on to our next story. Last night in Lewiston, is that the name of the town?
Lewiston, Maine.
Maine, a man went into a bowling alley. He was a local guy. Went into the bowling alley and opened up on the people in there with an AR-15, they think.
High-powered weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it killed 18 people confirmed dead and
13
injured.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of them are in the hospital. Can you imagine a little town like that? Of course, that's about the size of our town here, Tupelo, but still having that many people rushed into the hospital at the same time.
Yeah. 18 killed, 13 injured. Just think about all the families impacted by this.
Yeah, I know.
And they probably know, some people would know Mr. Card.
Yeah, and here comes the ban assault weapons.
Yes.
Flag laws.
That started the minute after this was national news, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I would imagine a state like Maine probably already has some pretty restrictive things on guns.
Yeah, we already have laws against killing people.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's been around a long time.
Murder's illegal, so he didn't care about that law.
Nope.
All right, what's your next story?
Well, from Maine to Israel, where troops and tanks launched an hours-long ground raid into northern Gaza last night, striking several terrorist targets in order to, quote, prepare the battlefield before a widely expected ground invasion after more than 2 weeks of devastating airstrikes. I shared this link a moment ago on our Facebook page to give you some indication that Israel is indeed moving toward a ground invasion that we've been talking about for 2 weeks now. I've got some audio of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking through an interpreter saying they have decided on a time for a ground invasion, and it's going to come with a vengeance. Clip 7.
I want to be clear. The timing of the ground invasion will unanimously decided by the War Cabinet along with the Chief of Staff and the Cabinet, and we will act in order to ensure best terms for our soldiers for the coming operations. When we will get into Gaza down the road, we will collect the highest price from those murderers who committed the horrible atrocities, Hamas, ISIS.
So I think what the Prime Minister is saying there, that Israel is not going to be swayed or back away from the intent that was put out there after the October 7th massacre, that they are out there, declared war on Hamas, and they are out to diminish and do away with Hamas as best that they can. Despite what we're seeing now, if you look at the mainstream media, their stories are all sympathetic to the Palestinians inside Gaza. All of the videos that you're seeing have totally switched away from the massacre of 1,400 Jewish men, women, and children there on October the 7th. And so he is saying, no, we're out to deal with Hamas once and for all. What happened last night, Israel sent some tanks briefly into Gaza last night. They wanted to kind of take out any kind of communication apparatus that Hamas may still be using. They found the entryway to some of the tunnels that Hamas uses extensively, and they wanted to deal with that, all in advance of a major, major mission to go into Gaza and once and for all find the Hamas, as you just heard through the translator there. They are going to deal with these Hamas terrorists once and for all, and basically what that means is take them out.
Mm-hmm. Hunt them down and take them out.
That's the way it's going, and it's going to be nasty.
Yeah. Ray, what do you think about this?
Well, obviously, the Israelis have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and we have said on this program they've got to go sooner or later, right? You can't put it off forever. There has been tremendous pressure, including some pressure from leaders here in the States to say, no, don't do that. But if the goal is to take out Hamas once and for all, you can't do that completely from the air. No. You can only do so much. You got to do exactly what happened last night on an even bigger scale. send in the tanks, send in the troops, find the bad guys, and pick them off one by one by one. It's going, Fred, as you said, it is going to be awful because we are living. You know, I was thinking about if we had social media during World War II, right, and posting to Facebook and Twitter and places like that during the Normandy invasion, right, how public opinion would be, would have changed. I am glad Prime Minister Netanyahu and the War Cabinet have finally set the time, and the sooner the better, go in there and get the job done. But as you said, Fred, it's going to be a nasty job.
And Hamas is still, over the last almost 3 weeks now since the massacre in Israel, Hamas Israel told the residents of northern Gaza to move to the south, and many of them have done that. I mean, Gaza City, in northern Gaza, 600,000 residents. It's a big, big city. And so most of those people have left. But there is still a lot of Hamas strength in the northern part because yesterday, late 10:30 Tel Aviv time last night, there were missiles from Gaza hitting in downtown Tel Aviv. So that's where we are. The danger is still very much there in northern Gaza. It's really interesting. There was a question yesterday to President Joe Biden from a reporter about what he thinks about the numbers coming out from Gaza of Palestinian citizens killed. And the number that the reporter gave was just over 5,000. And this is Joe Biden, President Joe Biden speaking. He says, well, if you believe the numbers that Hamas is giving people. I thought that was very interesting. The President of the United States, a Democrat, putting it out there, you can't believe the numbers that Hamas is giving. Mm-hmm. Because most of the video that you see coming out of Gaza right now is a lot of it is Hamas people taking those pictures.
Right.
We all know about the lie last week about the hospital.
Right.
Hamas told everybody it was an Israeli missile.
Right.
And that hundreds of people in that hospital were dead.
Right.
It was all a lie.
Right.
All a lie. So,
and all the media had to backtrack and apologize
yes.
after they went. I mean, even the very liberal, like New York Times, the BBC, others, they had to go back and say, wait, it wasn't a Israeli missile. It was a Hamas missile that went astray.
Yes, yes.
But remember,
and it hit a parking lot, and the injuries there just nowhere close to what they talked about.
Right. All right, so we'll see what happens. You know, with military personnel, I know they're on their own standby, but you know, it seems to me like with any human endeavor like this, you have an energy buildup, right? Mm-hmm. You have quote momentum, and you have a plan. You're ready to execute it. For every day that you're told stand down and wait is, I don't know. That seems to me psychologically that would be harder for every day you have to wait when you're on. You know what I'm ready? It's like a football team ready to take the field.
Yes.
And then they're told we got a TV timeout for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
to stay on alert.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think we have to stress is that America is involved with this. We just found out yesterday, and some of this happened a couple of weeks ago. American soldiers were injured when probably Iran sent missiles into Yemen and Syria. We have bases in those areas. Mm-hmm. We have 20 American soldiers that were injured in that.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't know there was that many injuries.
Yes. We just learned it yesterday.
Yeah.
The White House finally confessed to it.
There was also a missiles fired from Yemen towards Israel, and they were intercepted by Saudi Arabia. Did you see this?
Yes.
Because Yemen borders Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is between Yemen and Israel. We'll be back momentarily. Hey, we got a new Speaker of the House, and it's the kind of guy we're going to love, I think. We'll be back to talk about it.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
In the book of Proverbs, we read these words, "A man's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor." His name was Thomas Jefferson. He was born at Shadwell, Virginia on April the 13th, 1743. He died on July the 4th, 1826. The date was a tribute to the man, and in between those two dates he tied together a life of service to his fellow man. You probably remember him as the author of the Declaration of Independence, and most of all he would have wanted you to remember him for that. He even wrote his own epitaph. He had a reason for doing so. Before his death, he gave his daughter Martha Randolph instructions to have these words inscribed on his headstone. "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia." You know, that's saying a lot about a man's life, any man's life. Jefferson could have put more on that headstone, you know. He could have added a long list of accomplishments. He could have stated that he had served the state of Virginia as its governor. Most of us, had we the honor of being governor, would have included it in our epitaph, but not Jefferson. Also, he could have stated that he was a member of Congress, for he was, but he didn't choose to put that on his headstone. Jefferson could have also reminded those who were to view his headstone of the fact that he was Minister to France and Secretary of State. He was that, you recall, under the administration of George Washington. And that would have been something worth recalling for most of us, but not for Jefferson. From that position, Jefferson moved up to the number 2 man of these United States. He served as Vice President under John Adams, but not even that was included on his headstone. Had he wished, Jefferson could have engraved on his headstone the fact that he was President of this country, not once, but twice. And that's an honor shared by very, very few men. But Jefferson did not consider even that fact worthy to be included in his most precious accomplishments. Most of us would agree that pride is often a vice that destroys us. We accomplish something, and we cannot wait for the world to learn of our deed and praise us for doing it. And many of us keep telling people years after our accomplishment of what we once did. Some people learn how to handle pride. Jefferson was such a man. He learned how, like all people who do so, through a great desire to be a servant. Why didn't Jefferson include all those other accomplishments on his headstone? Well, he told his daughter when she sought the reason. "The things that are not on my inscription are the things the people did for me," he said. "The things that are on it are things I did for the people." That's proper control of pride. Pray to God that we can all acquire it.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's issues is the name of this program. Sandy on, yes or no? She is? Okay. So, Sandy Rios joins us now. Sandy is Director of Governmental Affairs for our ministry. That means she represents us in our nation's capital in various and sundry ways. And she's also the host of Sandy Rios 24/7 podcast, which you can find on afr.net, afr.net. So if you go to our afr.net and you click on podcast, you'll see, and then you can click on Sandy's 3 times a week podcast. So you can, it's, for those who don't know, a podcast is basically radio on demand. So she does that 3 times a week and has interviews and stories and topics, much like she did when she was live on the air with us for 10 years each morning on American Family Radio. Hello, Sandy. How are you?
Hey, Tim. I'm great. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, thank you.
And it was great to hear your dad's voice and that great.
Oh yeah. It's my turn. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So you're traveling today?
Yes, I'm in Virginia. I'm going to speak this afternoon later, dinner time, and I'm speaking on behalf of a candidate that's running here for Commonwealth Attorney. Virginia has their elections. I believe it's the 7th of November, and they always have they have different times for most of the country, but Virginia is struggling because they've had a huge transition. Conservatives have taken back all but one house. They've got the governorship, and so you can imagine tons of money's being poured in here to stop that trend towards red and towards conservatives and school boards and all the things. So here I'm here to help, and Bishop Jackson's going to be with me later on too. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. And I was in D.C. yesterday in meetings, so that's my assignment.
Gotcha. Well, tell EW we said hello.
I will.
We're still mad at him, but we're quitting on us. But anyway,
I'll be sure and tell him that.
Yeah, tell him. I did talk to him the other day. EW Jackson Bishop. He's going to do some fill-in work for us, much like you do, Fred.
Great.
Here on American Family Radio.
Super.
So
yeah,
soon you'll be hearing from EW, but he won't have a daily show because Todd Herman took over that spot. And but EW said, "Hey, I'm going to become available. I can be a utility player, right?
There you
Stick
go.
At second base or third base or whatever." So
yeah,
EW will be back on AFR.
Wonderful.
Bishop EW Jackson. Sandy, couple three things I wanted to talk to you about. One is I haven't talked to you since October 6th, what happened in Israel. And I wanted to ask you, after that, subsequent to that, we saw these demonstrations, these even public figures speaking out. They wouldn't say on behalf of Hamas or terrorism. They wouldn't say that. They would say we're speaking out on behalf of the Palestinian people being persecuted by the Jews in Israel, but still, the open anti-Semitism that I guess a lot of people didn't know was just below the surface has just exploded across America. I say exploded. That's what on college campuses anyway.
University campuses for sure.
What do you and even some public celebrities and so forth, they're saying things that are condemning of Israel. What do you make of this anti-Semitism coming up in America?
Well, I don't think it's much of a surprise, really, Tim, because there's a combination of things happening here. The left hates. Gosh, how can I explain this?
Well, they hate Jews and Christians. For one.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. That's for sure. It's a converging of forces. And so the left, of course, hates people of the book.
Right.
But in addition to that, we have opened our doors to thousands and thousands and thousands of people from the Middle East who hate Jews, hate them. They're the Palestinians. They're Syrian refugees. I'm not saying they're all doing this, but I guarantee you that's what they believe. We've allowed them across the border. We've allowed them. Remember, Barack Obama brought in thousands. President Biden just brought in thousands of Afghans. And their culture and their faith teaches that the Jews should be killed, and Christians too, by the way. But this is so. College campuses have been and campus groups have been really enjoined by Middle Eastern students who this is exactly where they live, and we see them in the streets. I mean, they live in those groups, and that's where they populate. We're seeing them in the streets. I mean, goodness, Tim, did you see that demonstration in D.C. On the mall with a Washington Monument behind it? The thousands of members of however they describe themselves, Palestinian, certainly sympathizers, bowing in prayer to Allah. And that's a sign of conquering. That's a signal. That's their signal. What it means to them, they're marking their turf. They have plans to take this country down.
Well,
so
look,
that's what's happening.
Yes, to your point, and then Ray, you jump in here too, because we've talked about the fundamental beliefs of Islam and how they are, they're completely contrary to Western values, traditional Western values of democracy and self-governing and freedom and liberty and so forth, individual rights. But if you, to your point about the immigration, okay, 2 of the squad members that are outspoken in favor of Hamas and dissing Israel all the time are Rashida Tlaib. Okay, where is she from? She's from the Detroit area. What is it about Detroit? Well, they have mass Muslim, Middle Eastern immigration there.
Her district.
Dearborn and so forth. I'm not saying all those people are bad. I'm just saying their views, as Sandy has said, basically are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. All right, where's the other leader of this group?
Ilhan Omar.
Okay, Ilhan Omar. Where's she from?
Minneapolis.
What is in Minneapolis? That's where the Somali population lives that Obama let in.
200,000.
He settled them there, Obama. 200,000. So, and those people are going to, that community is going to grow. She was elected by them. So to Sandy's point is we've let a lot of people in from the Middle East who are Muslims, and they hate Israel. They don't say it every day, all day, but something like this story rises up, the Israeli war with Hamas, and they speak out and they take the side basically of Hamas. Ray, go ahead.
So, Sandy, I'm wondering to myself, listening to you and Tim talk, how do we explain the rise of anti-Semitism here in the U.S.? Obviously, the immigration is a part of it, but I saw this survey just this morning saying the vast number of young people in the public education system don't even know about the Holocaust. I mean, they don't even know what the Nazis did to the Jews in World War II. They just literally don't know. It's not being taught. How do we explain that in America there are people, relatively well-educated people, who think there's some kind of moral equivalence between what Hamas did, the killing of the 1,400, whether it's beheading, whether it's raping, the terrible, unspeakable atrocities, to say that what has happened in Gaza is somehow morally equivalent, as if Israel doesn't even have a chance to defend itself. How have we come to this in American society?
Well, Ray, you know, and I will repeat what we all know, that we serve, the God of all truth. And when people begin to reject or ignore God, they become foolish. They become untethered from reality. They cannot put pieces together. They are a prey to all kinds of lies. So truth, and besides all of this, is as history is unfolding, I've just been reading in Daniel, reminding myself of what God has said through, the angel Gabriel and then Michael who spoke to Daniel, that this, of course, is a conflict against people of the book, all of us who believe in the one true God. This is a battle that goes beyond what's happening on earth. It's a battle to the end. And so whatever the tributary that we talk about, it leads to that. The erasing, the annihilation for the Jews, for the Hamas fighters and the Muslim Brotherhood and really Islam itself. It is to eradicate, not just to limit or, put them in a corner or take power politically. It is to eradicate the Jewish population. That's been the battle since time began. We've had, since I think of the time of Esther, when Mordecai, who was the guy, Haman, his plot was to destroy all the Jews.
Right.
This is not new. This is history. This is the Satan, the prince of this world, the prince of the world in which we live, who has been hiding, I think, or held, restrained because of the faith of the people of God and the Holy Spirit within us. And because we are waning in our commitment, we've become indulged and passive in our commitment to Him. We have allowed our churches to be polluted. Then that means that there's been less power of the Spirit restraining, and we're seeing more and more of Satan, more and more bold. And practically speaking, I just was going to tell you guys, people want to say that the people in Gaza are innocent. I have so much to tell you. The Biden administration, while they pretend that they are supporting Israel, are doing nothing but undermining them in every way. They forced Israel in those long negotiations when Biden and Blinken were supposedly there to help Israel. They actually forced them to allow $200 million worth of aid to go into Gaza. That aid wasn't supervised. Nobody saw what it was. And they want to tell us, and so does the news media, that the people that live there are perfectly innocent. They're innocent and they need to be helped. But the truth is, I just heard the phone conversation of a Hamas fighter calling his mom and dad and family. And on this call, you hear him so excited because, Dad, I've just killed 10 Jews. I killed 10 Jews. I'm calling you on a dead Jewish woman's phone, a dead Jew's phone. I'm calling you. It's what? And then the father and the mother, they're so happy. They're so excited. And they say to him, kill, kill. This is the conversation. And even the children, who must be his brothers and sisters that you hear. This is who lives in Gaza.
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Sandy.
I just want people to understand that in every way, the Biden administration is undermining and sabotaging Israel. They are not helping them.
Let me, to this point, to your point, Sandy, Fred, you got something to ask or say here too, but Karine Jean-Pierre is the spokesperson from the White House. She has been, other day she was asked about anti-Semitism. I don't know if we have this clip or not.
It's still in the system somewhere, Brent, from recent
But
days.
she doesn't answer the question. She starts talking about how Muslims are under persecution. And then later on, when she gets condemned for it by some in the press, she says, I misunderstood the question. And then, she did it 2 or 3 times, this kind of thing. I'm just going to make a judgment on her right now that's for what it's worth, okay? She's a squad type thinker.
Yes.
All right? She can't say it out loud because her boss comes across as, I'm standing with Israel and I'm against anti-Semitism. I'm talking about Biden, who Sandy just talked about his administration undermining Israel. But she's a lefty. And if she were able to be free of her job, she would go out there and march with those who are protesting Israel. So Biden, while he may speak in support of Israel, the lefties that surround him and those who are in his administration who have been hired since he's been, we all see Biden. He just walks around and reads from teleprompters, and he doesn't know what's going on half the time, bless his heart. I mean, he needs to resign. But I'm just saying that's one problem. But who fills the void in power is whoever's second, third down the line, and these kind of people are anti-Semitic. I'm telling you, they're and Karine Jean-Pierre is too, but she can't say it like that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth because he said stuff. Secretary Blinken came out and said, I'm a Jew. I stand behind Israel. And then we have people he's working with doing the exact opposite.
And I'm just telling you, traditional liberals aren't necessarily anti-Semitic or anti-Israel, but this rise of these cultural Marxists that we see going on across America, the woke crowd, we call them sometimes, they are going to be very much anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Yes. And we see that. They're not afraid of many of them to speak up now because their numbers are, they've got 5 to 10% of the public probably agree with them. All right. So Sandy, your podcast, tell us how people, what are you going to have on this week?
Could I just say a couple more things? Could I tell you something?
Go for it. Go for it. I didn't know if you had to leave or not. That's why I was trying to respect your time.
No,
okay.
I have time, and I just want to say that it's not just the inclination. The Biden administration is filled with Iranian spies. We know this.
Oh, really?
At the highest levels.
Okay.
Oh, yes. In intelligence, they have access, and some are saying that's probably why the Israelis and the Americans who are tied together in terms of intelligence did not see this attack coming, because we have been completely compromised. But
between them and the Chinese, we know the Chinese spies are everywhere here. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, I just heard yesterday, and this is not. I'm going to look. I'll give you some good news in a minute if we have a moment. But I want to tell you that we are estimating now that 10,000 young Chinese military-age men have come across our border, and so and of course we know that there are terrorists who've come in. They're flooding in. We are in great danger, and so the bottom line for me is that. Make sure your heart is right with God. Get in the scriptures so that you understand the times more deeply. Confess your sins and get right with God. And then do something to help defend the country. Mm-hmm. Do something. Get yourself ready. Do not be lulled into thinking it's not going to affect me. It will affect there's really nowhere to run or hide on the globe right now. Mm-hmm. And so we are in great danger even if you can't see it. It's kind of like the Titanic. Everybody's dining, but the iceberg's coming. I would say that something wonderful happened this week, and I believe it was an absolute miracle from God, and that's the election of Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. You're not going to hear this on Fox. They can't stand him because he's not their guy. They're over the Rubicon, Fox is on this. Mike Johnson is probably the most conservative Christian in the House. He's a strong pro-life, strong family. He's a constitutional attorney. He's got a lot of guts. If you see his interactions, interviewing, interrogating Merrick Garland and others, or taking part in the attempted impeachment of Donald Trump, you'll see that he's very articulate. He's soft-spoken and kind, but tough as nails. And so there were so many terrible things happening in the House, shenanigans, dirty tricks. And I think out of the chaos, I really do think I would just tell everyone there are some really fine Christian men and women working on our behalf right now in the House of Representatives. And they have been smart and savvy. And they prayed, and I believe this is a result of God hearing their prayers. And one other thing, last thing from me, if you want it to be, Mike Johnson, the first thing he did was ask for prayer. They all prayed after he was elected.
Amen. I was on a phone conference the other day, over the weekend, about Mike Johnson, the representative from Louisiana. He represents the I don't know which district number it is, but it's Shreveport. It's the northwest part of the state of Louisiana. And I was listening to this phone conference, and Mike was speaking. Congressman, I don't know him personally, but I know a lot of people who do know him personally who have great admiration for him. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I was thinking to myself as we were talking about what his chances may be to end up Speaker of the House. I was thinking, I'm going to put that at about 5% chance, because there were 3 or 4 people that were in line. This is post
Jim Jordan
being out of the race. Mm-hmm. There were 3 or 4 people in line. The guy from Minnesota, Emmert, and he would have been he's not one of us, okay, put it that way. And I was thinking, not very many people know who Congressman Johnson is. I do, for the reasons Sandy mentioned, because he's a strong conservative constitutionalist. But here we are, less than a week later, and as Sandy said, a miracle of God, I think. He's the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So I think now if he lets us down, it's all is lost. Okay, I'm just kidding. Our faith and hope, as Sandy always says, is in God.
Amen.
Always the first and foremost. But we need to pray that House Speaker Johnson holds the line, right, and stands up for the same things he stood up for all along, which made him House Speaker, and I think he will. I'm not doubting that. All right. Anything else, Sandy, before we go here?
No, well, there's a lot, of course, but I think those are the main things. And
well, save some of it for your podcast, or people aren't going to want to. You know what I'm saying? You need to say some.
You know, I need 10 hours to get everything out. Things are accelerating. I swear. You asked me about the podcast. It's going really well. This week we, it seems like 10 years ago. I'm in traveling and thinking about all these other things, but I had some great guests this week. Wednesday, Brigitte Gabriel joined me, and on Monday I talked about the speaker's race with Jenny Beth Martin. Jenny's been real involved in that, and I've been, had the privilege of staying on top of that in good ways. So, so we talked about that, and then didn't see that coming. Did not see Mike Johnson.
I know. That's what I'm saying. If we'd have been sitting here, if we'd have been talking a week ago on this show, Ray, and we'd been with Sandy, we'd have been going, Mike Johnson, I've heard of him.
Yeah,
but,
who was he?
Yeah.
Well, no, of course, I do have great admiration for him. I don't know him well, but I've seen him conduct these interrogations and the hearings, and I've always been impressed. But that's all I knew about him. Yeah. So, I mean, I just never saw that coming, because I've seen defeat after defeat from the canny leftists, and really compromised, corrupt part of the Congress, as far as I'm concerned, in the House. So I just think, honestly, God really gave us that, and I'm smiling. So, Wednesday, Brigitte Gabriel, tomorrow, Gary Hemrick. So it's a good lineup this week, and we've had some wonderful interactions, and the beat goes on, even though it's not the morning show. So I want to encourage people to listen. You can go to help me. AFA.net is our home base. If you go to sandyrios.com, it's really simple, but any podcast platform, Apple or Spotify, whatever, then you can listen anytime. I love what you said. Podcast is radio on demand. I think you should market that, patent that phrase.
It really is, because, you can get... So AFR.net, click on podcast, and Sandy Rios 24/7. Go there and listen to it, folks. You will really enjoy it. Sandy has a lot of great guests and interviews and insights. Check it out. It's AFR.net, Sandy Rios 24/7 podcast. All right, Sandy, safe travels, and we will talk to you very soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. That's Sandy Rios.
I was so impressed with Congressman Mike Johnson yesterday when he won that.
You want to play a clip? Do we have time for it? How long is it?
It's, how long is number 4?
It's airable.
Okay, cut number 4.
Go.
I want to tell all my colleagues here what I told the Republicans in that room last night. I don't believe there are any coincidences in a matter like this. I believe that Scripture, the Bible, is very clear that God is the one that raises up those in authority. He raised up each of you. All of us. And I believe that God has ordained and allowed each one of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. This is my belief. I believe that each one of us has a huge responsibility today to use the gifts that God has given us to serve the extraordinary people of this great country, and they deserve it.
I would have added, and I believe God is telling you lefties to repent. That's what I believe, but he didn't say that. He was more...
Maybe day 2. He'll say.
If y'all don't come up front right now, God's done with you. Ain't kidding.
I think he was. That was his introductory speech as Speaker of the House. He didn't want to get into too much of a fight at that juncture. Okay, we'll save that for today. All right, we shall return after this break for news, and we'll see you back here then.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Share truth, apply Scripture.
The story of Acts is a brilliant, glorious, hopeful, optimistic story.
Mm-hmm.
You never see them with a defeatist attitude of like, well, we got to bunker down because times are going to get hard.
Right. Share truth, apply Scripture. Every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Central on AFR, or catch the podcast anytime at afr.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. Maine's governor says 18 people were killed and 13 injured in the Lewiston mass shooting. Governor Janet Mills made the remarks at a press conference Thursday.
I'm profoundly saddened to stand before you today to report that 18 people lost their lives and 13 people injured in last night's attacks. In memory of those we lost and in honor of those who were injured, President Biden and I have ordered all U.S. flags and state of Maine flags to be lowered to half-staff immediately for the next 5 days. Maine State Police have issued a shelter-in-place order for Lewiston, Lisbon, and Bowdoin as the manhunt for that person of interest, Robert Card of Bowdoin, continues.
She said the state will deploy all available resources, including grief counselors, to help the affected citizens. Mills says the shooting suspect, Robert Card, is considered armed and dangerous and warns people not to approach him. There continues to be a shelter-in-place order for 3 towns in Maine as law enforcement scours the area looking for Card, who is a military-trained shooting instructor. The Senate Banking Committee will hold a hearing today in connection to the funding that may be supporting terrorist groups. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Sherrod Brown says that support of Israel is vital to our national security.
We must stand with both Ukraine and Israel as they fight back against 2 of the world's biggest threats, Putin and Iranian-backed terrorists like Hamas.
Israel has been at war with the terrorist group since October 7th. Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' administration is taking the extraordinary step of ordering state universities to ban a pro-Palestinian student organization from campuses, saying it illegally backs Hamas terrorists who attacked Israel earlier this month. State University System Chancellor Ray Rodriguez wrote the university presidents Tuesday at Governor Ron DeSantis' urging, directing them to disband the chapters of Students for Justice in Palestine. The new Speaker of the House, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson, has a lot of business on his plate now. Fox's Chad Pergram has more from Capitol Hill.
He has to fund the government by the middle of November. A lot of rocky shoals there to get through that. He also has to wrestle with the aid package that President Biden has sent to Capitol Hill for Ukraine and the Middle East. His members are watching this closely. There are also investigations and impeachment. Johnson met with Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer when it was thought that Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan could become Speaker. And will Johnson work with Democrats? Working with Democrats to fund the government and avoid a crisis over the debt ceiling is what undercut former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
And a member of Congress is pleading guilty. Fox's Ryan Schmeltz has details from Washington.
After New York Congressman Jamal Bowman was accused of falsely pulling a fire alarm while Congress was in session, Bowman has pleaded guilty at his arraignment.
Looking forward to paying the fine and 3 months later it being dismissed.
Bowman was charged with pulling a fire alarm last month and has said he was not trying to stop Congress from being able to vote, that it was an accident, and that he was in a hurry to get through a locked door. Bowman has agreed to a fine and a written apology as part of the plea deal. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
An off-duty airline pilot riding in an extra cockpit seat on a Horizon airline flight said, "I'm not okay," just before trying to cut the engines mid-flight, and later told police he'd been struggling with depression. That according to charging documents made public on Tuesday. State prosecutors in Oregon filed 83 counts of attempted murder against Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph David Emerson, who's 44 years old, on Tuesday just before he appeared in court with his attorney Noah Horst, who entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Federal prosecutors, meanwhile, charged Emerson with interfering with a flight crew, which can carry up to a 20-year prison sentence. Find more news and information online. Our web address is afn.net. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and the AFN mobile app. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordan.
Too busy to catch your favorite shows on the radio? Have no fear, because the AFR app is here. Download the app to have access to live broadcast, music streaming, as well as each podcast. Whether you're at work, at home, or on the go, it's easy to listen to AFR. The AFR app is available not only for Apple and Android users, but also on Amazon Alexa and Roku. Download the AFR app today at afr.net. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network, where we only offer good news, ladies and gentlemen. We always think of the sunny side of life right here, and that's why we have Sandy Rios on, because she is,
Yeah.
Sandy's just right up there with Joel Osteen in terms of getting your day started and being, you know what I'm saying? Every day's Friday. You guys are laughing. Ray Pritchard's in Kansas City, Kansas. So, listen, Joel Osteen's probably a great guy. I don't even know him. I just use that as a. He's known for everything's positive, right?
Got a big smile.
So Sandy's not that way.
She's got a beautiful smile, but
she does. Sandy's a wonderful person to be around, but when we ask her on, she just lays it out there. Like it is, and I just wish she would put a more positive spin on things of the world.
She's kind of like Jeremiah.
Yes, I'm gonna start calling her Sandy Jeremiah.
That's right. Hard to get good news out of Jeremiah.
It's true.
All right, I tell you what. Next time we have Sandy on, we'll just ask her for her favorite holiday recipes. How about
She's got some. We know this.
Yes.
I know.
We'll just I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll invite her on, like we always do, about every couple of weeks, and we'll just spring it on her. And you think that way she can't talk about the end of the world, right?
The other, a lot of people
she'll get to the end of the world.
Yeah. She'll say, and as you prepare for doomsday, make sure you make your pumpkin spice pie this way.
That's exactly right.
We haven't done this with Sandy for a long time, but she's got a beautiful voice.
Oh yeah,
she's got an absolutely beautiful voice.
It's a classical. She's her voice. I've heard her. It's like Barbra Streisand.
Yeah.
Really? I'm talking about her voice.
Yeah.
It's that
beautiful singer. Yeah. Beautiful singer.
All right, Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Yo.
Is with us. Good morning, Steve.
I hope her politics isn't like Barbra Streisand.
No, they're 180-degree difference.
I would think.
But I'm talking about her. Sandy was a professional singer, like back in
albums.
Back in the 70s, and I don't know how much of the 80s, but she has a CD, which is we've listened to 1,000 times, my wife and I, of worship and praise music.
Yes,
that she sang. All right, Steve.
Hey,
good morning to you.
Good morning.
What you been working on back there?
Well,
your boss Fred here wants to know.
I did an 11 o'clock newscast.
Yeah,
got the updated figures for this mass shooting. So as of right now, they still this guy's still on the loose. They still have a manhunt on, and they're still hiding in place or sheltering in place in about three different communities in Maine.
So no sign of this guy.
They don't know where he is. Now he's military trained. He's a trained shooting instructor, so he knew what he was doing with this gun.
Let me tell you something. Typically, I don't know. When these kinds of things play out often, one of two things happens. The person usually commits suicide But it's usually on site. You know what I'm saying? It's usually on site. If he's going to run from the cops, I don't think he's going to run from the cops just to go shoot himself in the head.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What would be the purpose of that? So my guess is they're thinking he's still at large.
Yeah.
And given the vast wilderness there, the forest, as Ray, as you said, I bet he's out there in a bunker somewhere, a cabin somewhere. I don't know, but he's hiding.
He gets up there into Caribou,
Maybe
Maine.
he's going to Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Caribou, Maine, and on up into Canada. Yeah.
I mean, there's all kind of places you could go never to be discovered, right?
Northern Maine. That's all it would take.
Yeah.
You get up there.
Now, you may die from starvation in the middle of the winter, but anyway, so they, to your point, the police are giving updates every few hours, and there's nothing new to report.
And they're keeping a lot of the information close to the vest, I think, as they will do in these kind of situations. Numbers are always fluid.
Right, because what if he's monitoring what the media is saying about the police?
Right. And
they don't want to say we're searching for him in such and such an area, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they tend to be very sparse with the information they give out, and it tends to change. For all morning, we thought 22 had been killed, and it turns out now officially it's 18. Doesn't make it any better.
But a lot were shot and injured.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
still a lot of people.
All right. All right, next story.
All right. Well, we have a congressman from New York who has turned himself in to the police. This is Jamal Bowman, congressman from New York, and he was charged with pulling a fire alarm. There was a vote that was going on September 30th.
I remember
that. It was a funding vote.
Yeah.
And the fire alarm goes off.
Yeah. Poor fella just got confused, didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't know what he was doing. He's just trying to get to he thought it opened a door, I think he said.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, it turns out no. So he has pleaded guilty in a D.C. Superior Court, and I want you to hear what he has to say about it, and then we're going to hear from fellow New Yorker Republican Mike Lawler on what he thinks about this. So let's listen to cut 9.
As I said from the beginning, I was not trying to disrupt any, official government proceedings. So I'm glad, the investigation found that was the case. The misdemeanor charge of pulling the alarm, I admitted that from the very beginning. So, gotta take responsibility for it. We have a deal in place, so looking forward to paying the fine, and 3 months later it being dismissed, and hopefully continuing to do work in my district.
Look, the video is pretty clear that he, tore the signs down and pulled the alarm and walked past multiple law enforcement officers without saying, hey, I made a mistake. Right. I accidentally pulled the alarm. He obviously did it to stall and create chaos. That's what he is. He's a chaos agent.
Like a get smart chaos agent, Ray? You think?
Listen,
he knew what he was doing, Steve. Right? He knew. We all know that. Well, even he says it in his voice. He got a deal, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And got to pay a fine, right? And in 3 months, it all goes away.
For those who don't remember, he's a Democrat congressman from New York, and a few weeks ago there was a vote coming up on the House floor in D.C. at the Capitol, and he pulled the fire alarm so that the vote was being disrupted. And am I right?
It was an ominous.
That's the accusation, which seems to line up with the facts. And he said, "Oh no, I just made a mistake. I was trying to get in
a door.
A door. Okay, that doesn't."
When's the last time you saw a fire alarm that looked like a door latch?
I know. It says fire alarm. It's red. You pulled it. That's just a bold-faced lie right there.
And Fred, this wasn't.
Is it a bald face or a bold face?
Bold face.
Yes,
I think.
Okay, well, I've heard it both ways. Can you do both? Can you tell both a bald face and a bold face lie?
If you don't have any mustache or beard, you can tell a bald face lie.
By the way, he's also a member of the squad.
Yes.
Even though he's a male.
Yes.
Or he identifies as a male, I guess, right now.
He is
a member of the squad?
He's a member of the squad. Yes.
And, Fred, this is not Congressman Lawler's first interaction with Mr. Bowman, is it?
No, it's not. They shared an airplane ride the other day.
Yeah.
Sat beside each other.
Listen to
listen
to cut 10.
I was flying home to Westchester last week, and he happened to sit down next to me in the same row, and I looked at him and I said, well, thank God we're not sitting in the exit row, because Lord knows what he would have done.
Oh, that's good. That's clever.
But you know what? In all seriousness, it's a funny story to talk about. But when you pull a fire alarm in a building like the Capitol, and you cause people to panic and do all sorts of things, people could have got injured. People think there's a fire. People think that nobody's going to pull a fire alarm in the Capitol just for whatever kicks. So that's a very serious. So that's a crime.
Yes,
it's like going in a crowded theater and yelling fire. Like you make people panic and run, and people can hurt themselves in that way, and they do things. So that's what he was charged with a crime, and he's confessing to it, right?
A misdemeanor. He's sticking with the I didn't know what I was doing, but I did pull the alarm.
Well, you know what? If you don't know what you're doing when you're pulling a fire alarm that says fire alarm and it's red, you need to go home because you're worse off than Biden.
Yes.
If you expect us to believe that whopper.
And here's the other thing. I'll make a prediction.
Yeah.
I don't think CNN will cover this story.
Oh, really?
No. The Associated Press, as of when I came into the studio about an hour ago, had not mentioned this story. Fox is talking about it. A few other people. But, no, if this was a Republican who did this, for...
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Oh, they'd be all over it.
We'd have
calling for his resignation.
We'd have an October 15th commission.
That's right. Fire alarm commission.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So that's funny. So the Republican who was sitting next to him on the plane, they were both going to New York City because he set up in Westchester, so they're flying home. And he's worried about he's making fun of the fact that this Bowman might go over there and pull.
As if you've seen those exit row things, it's red. It says "Don't pull." I mean,
I know.
It looks an awful lot like a fire alarm.
It was a door, sir, but you weren't supposed to jump out of it at 30,000 feet. All right, go ahead, Steve.
All right, let's talk about some of the media coverage we have. I know you guys talked about Representative Johnson, who's the new Speaker of the House, and he is a Christian, and it looks like we're going to have some sanity there, but the mainstream media is having none of it. I want you to listen to some of these headlines for on the appointment of Mike Johnson. This is the New Republic. Well, we have a speaker. He's an election denier and an extreme Christian fundamentalist. Says Mother Jones, Mike Johnson helped engineer Trump's coup. Then Democrats helped make him speaker. Not sparing the Democrats. The Vanity Fair, Mike Johnson tried to help Donald Trump steal an election. He's now Speaker of the House. So they don't like him very much, and they're letting their bias come through.
I don't even think you can call it bias anymore. It's just they're just on team progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got another example of it too. This isn't with regard to Johnson, but this is NBC. NBC put up there's a story about a guy who died, and the story that NBC put up, they had a tweet that the headline was, "A mother reports her son missing in March. Police kept the truth from her for months." And then the little description down below the picture, a Mississippi mother's search for her adult son ended when she discovered an off-duty officer had run him over and, without telling her, buried him with other unclaimed bodies. Well, that sounds
so. That's the NBC story.
That's NBC story. That's a pretty dire. It's because he's black, of course. NBC says, and they don't treat black people like humans. They're going to bury him. Well, here's the truth. His name was Dexter Wade. He was 37 years old, had children of his own. He was a convicted criminal with sentences for auto theft and armed robbery. And for some reason, on March 5th, 2023, he was high on PCP and decided to walk across a highway, and an off-duty officer did strike him and killed him. He was drug tested, the officer was, and found sober and cleared of any crime. Wade had no ID on him, so they had to go through and they found a prescription bottle with his name on it. So they finally found out who he was, and they called his mother, the mother that says that she found him missing, and left a message on the phone. Now, she either didn't get it or didn't care to admit that she got it. So the mother left a voice message on the phone, and then the body was taken, and the people that claimed the body, they're at a different place in the police department than the people who identified him. So they didn't communicate real well, and they did bury this guy in a missing persons grave, but they didn't do it on purpose. And NBC, with just a little checking, probably could have gotten a better read on that story. This is our media these days.
Yeah, we just see this all the time for particular stories. They already have a spin that they want to put on the story, and that's the way they're going to go with it.
Yep.
So what grade would they get in journalism school for handling a story like that, Steve?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ray, they get an A.
They would.
In today's journalism school, they would get an A.
Yeah. That's where journalism is taught to go these days.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we've been hearing about this Hamas raid and how it surprised everybody. The U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence really didn't know much about it. We're finding out a little bit how. It seems that our intelligence agencies have gone high tech, and they're monitoring every kind of social media and radio and every kind of communication that they can find, and they got spies inside. Well, Hamas used regular landlines that they had buried underground and face-to-face meetings. That's all that they did, and they kept this invasion, this attack within their military wing. They didn't talk about it with their political wing. The political wing is where all the Israeli informers are. So that's why they had no idea that it was coming, because they went low tech.
That's kind of interesting. Remember what Sandy told us just a few moments ago?
Mm-hmm.
There are all kinds of Iranians inside the Biden administration. And
Iranian spies is what
Iranian
she said.
spies. And we do know that Iran was very much involved in training the Hamas terrorists who carried out the massacre on October the 7th. The Iranians were behind because we have now seen videos of these Hamas terrorists practicing in kind of city or community environments, and that Iran was their teacher. So what Sandy was proposing, perhaps these Iranian spies within perhaps the State Department or wherever they're working, let the Iranians know. And I tell you what, we are in desperate need right now. You add all of this up, and we've talked about this before, of probably there are Islamic terrorists who have crossed our southern border. They're here now. And the United States, as Sandy pointed out, had better be on alert. Americans had better be on alert because we have a lot of bad characters. The Chinese sending people in here. Somebody said at least 1,000 or so from the Chinese government that crossed our border. We had better be on alert in these days ahead.
Ray?
You don't want to be apocalyptic, sound like Sandy, but we are living in apocalyptic times, guys, because of the mullahs over there in Iran. They have their, do they have nuclear weapons there or not? It's not really totally clear in my mind whether they do, but I think if they do, Fred, they'll use them. I think at some point they wouldn't hesitate to use them. So we're living in the on the eve of destruction. To throw back to that song from the 60s. These are very dangerous times, made much worse because of the situation on the southern border that has allowed this long string of bad actors to come into our country.
Yeah, and as we've said before, Iran is probably the number one problem in the world right now.
Yeah.
Because with China and with Russia and with most other power players in the world, you can reason with them, you can negotiate, you can talk to them, you can do trade deals, you can, I don't know, you can have power to say, if you use this, we'll blow you off the face of the map, so to speak. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're dealing with somebody is driven by a religious ideology, they don't care as much typically about we see this with religious cults down through history, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just care because they think they're driven by whatever they think a God's is telling them to do. And in the case of the mullahs in Iran, they're Islamic Shia fundamentalists, and they think they're ushering in the end of the world, and they're making Allah happy by what they're doing, because Allah wants to eradicate the unbelievers or the infidels. Well, who are they? Well, they're the Jews and the Christians, basically. Mm-hmm. And where is that? Well, the little Satans in Israel and the great Satans in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yes. And so until that changes, until you get rid of that ideology, we're always going to have this threat.
Yes.
And it's even worse because these people are in control of a country, and that country is building, to raise question about whether they have it or not, they want to build nuclear weapons. Well, why would you want that? In case they want to use them.
Yes.
So it's, as Ray said, a very dangerous time we live in.
Yeah. Mitch McConnell the other day gave a very somber assessment.
Yeah.
And he said there is an axis of evil out there, China, Russia, and Iran right now. They're all bad actors. And China is out to become the world superpower. And Russia is right there with them. The Iranians are supplying Russia with ammunition in their fight against the Ukrainians.
Who is?
Iran.
Oh.
Yes. And then China is, China is trying to play the nice guy on the world stage. We just want to participate with everybody else. But everybody knows China's up to no good in so many areas, it's not funny.
Yeah. Well, it's, we the U.S., we're tied. We're what they say, joined at the hip with China.
Economically, yeah.
Economically.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't make it without them, and they can't make it without us. Yep. They make it, and we buy it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If you want to boil it down, China and the U.S. right now. All right. Well, Ray, thank you for being on with us today, brother. Are you traveling anymore, or is that it?
Next weekend, last big trip of the year up to Cannon Beach, Oregon.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah,
yes.
Beautiful.
So you'll be on the show tomorrow? I mean, you'll be on the show Tuesday?
Absolutely. God willing.
Okay. How far is that from Crater Lake?
I don't know. Steve, help me out.
It's not.
I've never been to Crater Lake.
Crater Lake is more south than Cannon Beach, I believe. I'll look, but.
Well, I want to go to Cannon Beach, but I've got this obsession.
Crater Lake?
To go to Crater Lake.
It would be cool.
You heard of it, right?
100%. Seen the pictures. Fantastic.
Look at the pictures of Crater Lake. It was caused by a big. They think it was caused by a big meteor. I think that hit the.
Made the crater, right?
Yeah.
It's 5 hours
from Crater Lake to.
From Crater Lake to Cannon Beach. Cannon Beach is right south of Portland, and Crater Lake is down by the California border, closer to.
So your chances of being carjacked are better in Cannon Beach.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Right, Crater Lake.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
In Portland, that's closer you are to Portland. Okay. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, too.
Well, thanks to Fred and Steve and Brent and Sandy and Chris. Thank you for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow with Trivia Friday.
Here at the AFA Foundation, we help families just like yours shore up permanent income for their retirement years through our charitable gift annuities.
AFA